E.H.Taylor Small Batch. Is this sought-after bourbon really worth the hunt? Stick around to find out. What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of With or Without Whiskey, the show where I give you the history and review of all things whiskey. I'm Ryan, and today I will be reviewing E.H.Taylor Small Batch. So before we get started, it was brought to my attention that I never explained how I grade all of these whiskeys. So I'm going to give you a quick little rundown, and I'm also going to be adjusting how I do the grading as well. So the way I'm going to be doing the grading from now on is I'll give it a score in each one of the categories, add them all up, and that'll be the final score. So I'll grade it from 1 to 20 on the nose, 1 to 20 on the taste, 1 to 20 on the finish, and 1 to 20 with water. I'll also give it a score of 1 to 10 for price and availability, and a score of 1 to 10 for uniqueness. Once all those numbers are added up, you get the score out of 100. So enough ranting, let's get into the review. Colonel Edmund Haynes Taylor Jr. was born on February 12, 1830, and is considered one of the founding fathers of the bourbon industry. Throughout his life, Taylor was the mayor of Frankfurt, a state representative, and he was also the grandson of 12th U.S. President Zachary Taylor. At the end of the Civil War, he purchased a distillery called the Old Fire Copper Distillery, or OFC Distillery, which would later be called the George T. Stagg Distillery, and finally, Buffalo Trace. He designed his distillery to resemble a medieval castle, which attracted people to the distillery. When people came to visit, they were given 1-ounce bottles of Old Taylor, the bourbon being made at the time. E.H. Taylor was first released in 2013 by the Buffalo Trace Distillery, and the small batch is the entry-level expression of the line. Other E.H. Taylor expressions include single barrel, barrel proof, straight rye, 4-grain, and warehouse C, along with some single releases like Tornado Surviving, Cured Oak, and 18-Year Marriage. All the E.H. Taylor expressions, except the barrel proofs, are bottled in bond, because Colonel Taylor played a major role in the Bottled in Bond Act. All E.H. Taylor products are aged in Warehouse C, which was built during Colonel Taylor's time as owner. E.H. Taylor is a bottled in bond bourbon made by the Buffalo Trace Distillery. It has no age statement, but because it's bottled in bond, it is at least 4 years old, although it is said to be between 6 and 8 years old. It is 100 proof, or 50% ABV, and uses Buffalo Trace's Mash Bill No. 1. It is chill filtered with no color additives, has a barrel entry proof of 125, and uses a level 4 barrel char. It retails for about $40, but because of its allocation, it's usually sold around $100 or more. All right, let's get into it. And before we get started, I want to give a big shout out to David A., who generously donated this bottle to the channel. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. All right, let's get into it. All right, so take a look at the color. It's very, very dark. Almost got a brown mahogany, like deep red to it almost. And that can only come from the H. All right, let's get into the nose. Okay, right up front, I'm getting a lot of cherry, I'm getting a lot of caramel, and I'm getting a good amount of plums as well. It's got those dark fruit notes. As you get into it a little bit more, there's a good amount of oak on that nose as well, but a very strong note that's coming in is molasses. It's got that deep, dense, sugary sweetness. There's a little bit of cinnamon on there, and then right in the back, I almost get like freshly cut peaches. Like it has that nice, light, fresh kind of smell you get when you cut up a bunch of peaches. There's really not a lot of spice on there. You don't really have too much of an alcohol burn. It smells pretty gentle. Let's see how it tastes. Cheers, guys. Okay, there wasn't a lot on the nose, but on the taste, there's definitely a good amount of spice. Right up front, you get cinnamon, cloves, a little bit of nutmeg, and kind of like ground up allspice berries. As it develops a little bit more, you start to get into the real sweet part of this. It's that deep, dense molasses that was on the nose. There's some caramel to that. There's a little bit of apricot to it, but it's not like the fresh fruit. It's more like the dried fruit you get in like those Ziploc bags. There's a very deep oak flavor just hanging out throughout the entire thing. And you can definitely taste the char on this. It's not like that could go to like that toasted marshmallow taste. No, this is like straight charred wood. The finish is pretty long, actually. It's got a good amount of complexity. There's some dark fruits. I'm getting those plums, maybe a little bit of raisins. There's, again, a lot of oak on this, and it's very viscous. Like, it's got a very good mouthfeel throughout. There's a little bit of honey kind of at the end of the finish, but it's really not all that sweet. All right, let's see what happens when we add a little bit of water. But before we do that, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button down below. Not only does it show support for the channel, but it helps other people find the channel as well. All right, let's see what happens to E.H.Taylor with a little bit of water. Okay, the water made the nose a lot sweeter on this. I'm still getting those peach notes. I'm still getting those caramel notes, those kind of cherry notes, and that deep molasses is a little bit more intense now. I'm getting those plum notes again. I'm still getting the oak, but it's not as intense. It definitely dulled down the oak. It really didn't change it too much. It kind of just dulled the oak and brought forward a lot of the sweet flavors. Let's see what it did to the taste. Okay, that made the kind of spiciness at the beginning, like that cinnamon, that clove taste, almost disappear at the beginning. It's a lot more sweet up front. I'm getting a lot of honey. I'm getting almost maple syrup on that too. The oak is still a major player. It didn't go away at all, but it's doing the same thing it was without the water. It's just a consistent oak flavor that you get throughout the entire sip. The big difference it did with the water is it kind of killed the finish. This went from a long, nice finish to almost extremely short, like it's already gone. There's definitely that lingering oak, maybe a little bit of the char. It kind of went to that toasted marshmallow taste now. So it's almost like a s'mores with like that toasted marshmallow graham cracker kind of flavor. Let's try one more. Okay, on the second one, I was definitely getting more molasses. That's still in there, but the predominant flavor is still oak. All right, stick around for the grade. All right, so E.H.Taylor small batch. What do I think? So for the nose, I think I'm gonna give it 18 out of 20. It had a very pleasant nose. There was the peach, cinnamon, molasses, those dark fruits like cherry, plum, and that decent oak flavor. It was pretty complex, and all the scents in this really melded together very nicely and made it a very enjoyable thing to smell. For the taste, I think I'm gonna give it the same grade, 18 out of 20. It had a very good balance between sweet and spicy. You got the spices up front, cinnamon, cloves, allspice berries. Then it transitioned into the sweet. Molasses, caramel, kind of those fruity notes with the dried apricot. and it was very full-bodied, so it had a very good mouthfeel to it. For the finish, again, I think I'm going to give it 18 out of 20. Very, very nice. You guys know I really like a long finish, and this one was long. Had some good dark fruit notes, good amount of oak lingering through the whole thing, and very viscous. Like I felt it like on my cheeks, on my tongue, on the roof of my mouth. It was very enjoyable. So for the water, I think I'll give it a 17 out of 20. Most of it was the same. The nose didn't really change that much. Same with the taste, didn't really do too much. But the finish kind of dropped off a little bit. It went from really long to really short. So it kind of lost a point on that. Now, for price and availability. If you can find this at $40, that's great. But you're usually going to find it around $100. Availability, honestly, for the small batch, it's not horrible. I have seen this in a decent amount of stores for around $100. So price and availability is going to get a 5 out of 10 for me. And then for uniqueness, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10. So it wasn't really that unique on the flavor. The only kind of outlying thing that was there was that peach heavy scent. Everything else is very typical, but it did it very well. It gets most of its points from the history of it. Colonel E.H.Taylor being heavily involved in the Bottled and Bond Act, and this one always being bottled in bond. Plus how it's aged, a little bit of the allocation, but it's really not much different than any other bourbon. So the final grade for E.H.Taylor Small Batch is 80 out of 100. This was a phenomenal bourbon, had a great taste, a great nose, the finish was really nice, and even when you added some water to it, it held up pretty well. Price and availability though, good luck finding this at $40. You're most likely going to pay over $100, and to be honest, I'm willing to pay that once, but anything after that, it's not really worth it. So for E.H.Taylor Small Batch, I think I'm going to go with it. This is a phenomenal bottle of bourbon. It tastes fantastic, it smells fantastic, and if you could find it at retail, it's an amazing price. If you're having trouble finding it in a store, I definitely recommend either trying it at a bar or bumming it off of a friend. Definitely give it a shot. It's worth trying at least once, and if you really like it, then you can go out and hunt for it, see if you can find it at a decent price. Well, that does it for today's episode of With or Without Whiskey. If you enjoyed the episode and you had a good time, please let me know in the comments below. Also, let me know if you've ever had E.H.Taylor. What do you think about it? Do you like it? Do you hunt for it? Or is it one of the ones you pass for? I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. And if you liked this review, check out some of the other ones I have. I'll leave a few of them on the end screen. So remember guys, no matter how busy you are, there's always time for a drink with friends. Stay safe everyone.